So our next panel discussion is on charting the course, policy making for Guam's defense readiness. And this is a big thing. We're looking at the intersection of defense policies and local policies. And we're real pleased with our panel. We also are blessed with the participation of Vera Tapasnia, who is right at the center of the intersection of defense policies and local policies as the executive director of the Community Defense Liaison Office. So we're really pleased. And panel, welcome. I'm so happy to have you all up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you each, try to keep it around a minute to introduce yourself and give us your thoughts on what all this means, particularly about policy. Thank you. Speaker?
Half a day. That's how I give pantalon. Half a day.
Half a day.
There you go. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm Frank Bloss Jr., the Speaker of the 38th Guam Legislature. And I appreciate the opportunity to be up here along with my colleagues and others. Because I think that we're going to represent something that, and to no offense to everybody that's around the room, but we're going to be representing the other side of what happens before policy. It's the creation of the policy and the work that we need to be able to put in to be able to help to create it. And so I can appreciate all the discussion and the work that we've been talking about, which is primarily happening on the other side, the other branch of government, the branch that is handled by the governor and lieutenant governor, and with all due respect. But we're the side that actually has to try to piece it together for the community. You all are responsible for the execution of the policy and of the plans. We are responsible for the creation of the policy, so that you can carry out the plan. I appreciate the conversation that we had earlier with the early panel, because it goes along the same line, the old adage. Failure to plan is planning to fail. And it's in that plan, in the creation of the plan, that's our role. How it's executed is yours. And then what happens is that when the community doesn't get informed on either side, we become the recipients of basically the complaints. And to try to be able to bridge that understanding, if you will. So we present a very unique role in this case, the buildup. That buildup is your job. Okay, how we get to the buildup and how we're getting to the buildup is ours. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your thoughts. I think the approach here throughout all of this is how do we come together and try to erase whatever red lines there are, so we work together to have policy and execution that works for all. And it's a community effort, and that's why we're so pleased to have you here, because you are, you're an important part of our community in getting policy rolling or passing laws, however you want to state that. But I think the important thing that we're looking for in this panel is how do we intersect? How do we intersect? Not just with the Department of Defense, but also how do we intersect with each other as a community to put forth things that'll give us more opportunity to intersect with other outside forces or internal forces, the Department of Defense, however you want to look at it. That's, I think, what we're trying to look for here. So thank you very much. Senator Lujan, to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Cliff. Perfect segue to what I'm going to say as well. But thank you very much. I'm Jesse Lujan. I'm the Majority Leader of 38th Guam Legislature, also the committee chair, oversights, of course, Federal and Foreign Affairs, Tourism, Transportation, Customs and Quarantine, and all utilities. And as Cliff was saying, I want to be very clear as well that the Guam legislature must be included in every decision that affects our island's future. Decisions about, of course, defense, infrastructure, economic policies cannot continue to be made without the people's voice present in those decision-making decisions. The Department of War, Department of Defense, as it's Department of War, is again also known as Department of Defense leadership. While our sons and daughters wear the uniform and serve patriotically, Guam, as you all know, has the highest enlistment per capita in the armed forces. We still have extremely, very limited voice in Congress. We don't vote for president. We don't vote for any decision makers in the Hill, except for one with non-voting. So that's really a second-class American. You've spoken about wanting to be partners. Help us to advance this partnership. All day yesterday, I kept hearing about the Guam Guard, and I looked at the agenda. And the one person not speaking at this forum is Brigadier General Michael W. Cruz. Partnership? Yet his voice and the National Guard's voice is not heard. How can we consider that a partnership? General Cruz, having served as our Lieutenant Governor, as a Senator, and now the Adjutant General, he's a local boy, has served and has saved thousands of lives as a surgeon. And one of the persons that helped to rebuild the Guam National Guard to be the best fighting force to protect our homeland. This is leadership and this is service. This is the commitment. And while General Cruz is not here today, he's briefing Admiral Papero. Can we take a moment again to recognize the entire Army Guard and Air National Guard with a round of applause, please?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We have limited time up here. I'd like to go to Senator Tino Monia Barnes.
Si Jus Masi Clifford, Hafaday, Jan Manana, si Jus, Hamzu Todos, Guahu, si Senador Tino Monia Barnes. I am your senator, ranking member for the 38th Guam legislature. Thank you to the majority party for sharing that position to me. But more importantly, I have been your public servant for 10 terms. And as I continue to listen to this charting the course of policy making for Guam's defense readiness, ladies and gentlemen, the one word that comes to me, as noted by the previous moderators, is alignment and coming together as one. What happens outside, what happens inside, or vice versa, inside and outside, should come together and entwine as one. We should align ourselves to make sure that we are truly ready if anything happens for our community, for our people, and for our nation. And decisions that were made way before our time continue to live for today. We gotta come together as one for tomorrow. Sainamasi.
Thank you very much. Ricky, can you give us your perspectives, introduce yourself and give us your perspective?
Thanks, Cliff. Hafaday. My name is Ricky Orsini, Policy Director for the Office of the Governor. And in this panel, I challenge us not to just think of policymaking on a local level, but we have to also engage policymaking at the federal level. Given Guam's unique position as a US territory, but also as an isolated island, we have to engage in other ways. So I think of it as we have to be two things. One, relentless in our advocacy for the needs of our community, and two, resourceful. Those are the two R's I think of when we have to engage in policy making in order to ensure that our needs and our concerns are heard. And so you have seen this because we don't have a voice in the Senate and our delegate to Congress in the House cannot vote on the floor of Congress. You have seen the governor grow as a federal voice for Guam, engaging directly with the White House, engaging directly with military leaders, and engaging directly with Congress. So our governor, I consider her as also a top federal voice for Guam. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Enriquez.
Thank you very much. Hafidez and Manana Sijus, Hamdu Totus. Thank you for this opportunity to sit on this panel. I had wondered why I'm sitting on this panel, but I think when we, in learning over the past 24 hours, learning about the context on the critical need for that state of readiness. And we've learned it from the DoD sphere. From a planning standpoint, we're only as strong as our weakest link. We're only as strong as our weakest link. So when you negate the importance of where the other part of the formula, which represents the civilian planning, when you negate that part of the equation, and that part is not as strong as the other part behind the fence that is filled with tremendous resources. We talk about natural disasters, adversarial actors, the need for better communication systems, the need to ensure that that imbalance, which is caused by the planning of the build-up. What have been the consequences? What have been the burdens? Where are we from a local government standpoint with regard to resources? There's a lot of competition for very limited local resources. I
Yes.
know this as
Yes.
a public higher education institution that is a both land grant, sea grant, that is intent always on delivering public value. The resources that are leveraged, whether it be local, federal, et cetera, are intentional to help fill the knowledge as well as the research necessary for policy development. So
Thank you.
I would just also want to thank those partners who've allowed us to be able to provide much needed skill and knowledge capacity in our interns as well as our graduates with Naval Facilities Marianas, and also with the opportunity for the federal sector to be able to provide the expertise for youth and early childhood development. So
Thank you.
we respond, but I'd like to see more collective, comprehensive planning where we have the key stakeholders at the table at the front end, but not at the back end. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. There's been a lot of discussion already over the last day and today about that, and I think we can find nuggets in every one of the panels because it is important, and we are all in this together. But somebody who has to face this every day and that intersection is Vera Tapasna, because in her position as the executive director for the Community Defense Liaison Office, she experiences that. And Vera, why don't you give us your quick perspective on this?
Well, you know, I want to reiterate what Ricky said about with regard to the buildup and military actions. It's really critical that we understand the local policies or laws that are available to us to execute, or for the local agencies to execute in response to whether it's growth or an emergency. And then second to that is there are no differences in policy, whether you're local or federal, because in the Department of Defense, and I'm sure, for sure in our local policy making, there are certain things that our agencies or military personnel or military departments do not have statutory authority to do or to perform. And so those are things that we have to be looking at to be able to do some of the things as partners
And then, you know, as a local community, how do we enhance our local policies that benefit Guam? And that, I mean, there could be a host of things and so to Ricky's point, it is really understanding both policies, how they intersect to support and benefit the community of Guam, and that is something that the CDLO continues to monitor. We work with Ricky. I don't know if Carlotta's in the room, but I've seen the local legislature adopt some policies. But I think an understanding, to Anita's point, bringing in policymakers from across the spectrum of this community to discuss the lack of policy, if you will, but also looking at what are the barriers and defense policy that may not be beneficial to a community, and then how do we push that federal agenda forward through the governor and through Congress? So that's kind of my
Yeah, and I think, you know, what I've heard from you, I mean, I understand all the points relative to it, and policies can be very localized, and sometimes it's difficult to get beyond that local vision to go to a wider vision, particularly when we have other people who are engaged. And we need to admit that and address that, right? And it does start with the University of Guam and your public administration setting some tones. It certainly starts with CDLO, the Office of the Governor, and her efforts to get out there and be in front of these policymakers out there to help bring that perspective back. But, you know, as far as we have policies locally that we need to focus in on. You know, and part of that is helping to develop and maintain workforce here. What can we do? What kind of areas do we have policy making that could support something like that to prevent them from leaving and, you know, facing the high cost of housing, the high cost of so many things that are going on, and to have that community kind of a little more whole and a little more homegrown as much as we can. But that's going to help us in our resiliency, and it's going to help us to win without fighting, which was one of the perspectives that were brought forward in one of the panels. Any comments on that, Mr. Speaker? Anybody from the legislature?
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that, and we got to recognize that. And I'll take you from the experience that we have with the Guam legislature. When there is a policy decision or there's a request for a creation of a policy or an amendment to policy, you know, you got to remember, we got to go through the 5 W's and the 1 H, okay? Who, what, where, when, and why, and how.
Sure.
Before we can be able to do the job that you're going to ask us to do. And there are times that we are put in positions where this is a policy we need so that we can do this. Without being provided at the onset the 5 W's and the 1 H. And, you know, when you are responsible for doing this, you want to cross T's and dot your I's and get the information. It's not to be adversarial or to go against it. It's to understand it. The discussions that we've had yesterday and today, a lot of it spur around community engagement and community involvement, community participation. And remember, we have to answer, and we represent the voice of the community in being able to answer those questions. And it's a long, and granted, it can be tedious and arduous to do it, but it makes it easier when, as stated by Ricky and by you know, Vera, that when you bring the policy makers in the onset, it's not for the purposes of you know, wanting us to go in and shelve everything. It's let's find a way, and if there needs to be policy changes, then how can we best do it?
Definitely.
But it's being open with the conversation.
Okay. Yes, Speaker? Excuse me, Senator.
That's okay. You know, I have three perspectives here. You know, the legislature must set the legal framework so that every dollar of defense-driven growth leaves a lasting footprint in our economy, and that begins with dual-use mandates, laws that require new infrastructure, whether it's energy upgrades, port modernization, or health care facilities to serve both the mission and the community.
Okay.
We can also create statutory incentives for small businesses to enter the defense supply chain, such as tax credits, and we've done this before for companies that secure federal contracts, apprenticeship requirements tied to military construction projects, and an Office of Defense Economic Development to train firms on federal procurement, which is very important. And finally, Clifford, Guam must legislate workforce development as part of readiness by dedicating revenue streams into scholarships, technical training, and professional pipeline in engineering, cyber, and healthcare, so that we can ensure that the defense investments build careers for our people rather than importing labor from elsewhere. And the law must guarantee that the growth tied to the Department of Defense translates into real opportunity for Guam's family. And here on Guam, the Guam Community College, the University of Guam, and just the administration and working, as noted earlier, we create the policy, the administration executes, but it has to benefit everybody. And we have to be continue to educate and train, and whatever's being done out there should be done for us.
Agreed. Yes, no doubt. There's no doubt.
Thank you,
Senator.
Cliff. Yeah, Cliff, you know, just yesterday, myself alongside 7 other of my Republican caucus had introduced the Friendship Caucus resolution that would encumber, of course, not just Guam, but Taiwan, Philippines, Japan, and Korea. This would give us, again, better opportunity, and Guam more of a say-so in the Indo-Pacific area in regards to not just you know, in regards to activities around here, but in economic development here as well in Guam. So that was introduced yesterday as a result of listening to the panels that were up here talking about that plight and the importance of partnership. And I think having regional Friendship Caucus will give us even a little more strength in regards to that until such a time that again, legislative change in Congress regarding Guam's status is worked on and acted upon.
Yeah, and that's a long road. That's a long road. In the meantime, we do have, you know, what we're facing now, and there's forward movement or forced posture position, and we do have to work on that. From your perspective, Ricky, on the policy side, what is your sense, and where do we need to intersect? How do we need to intersect? I mean, that's really why we're up here.
Thanks, Cliff. I want to touch on a specific issue, right, on how we can intersect on a policy area. So the days leading up to this forum, I've noticed both former Congressman Dr. Underwood and also local legislator Senator Will Parkinson both wrote letters to the editor regarding our issue of ensuring that our people have affordable housing.
Yes.
And so I think this is where federal policy making and the support of our military partners can come in. And so on the executive side, we have pushed for a 3-prong approach. The first is, right now, H-2B workers are tied to federal projects. And for the federal government to expand that and pass a law to also address local projects, because we've seen that the cost of housing has skyrocketed because of the shipping costs for materials and most especially the demand on labor. So that is the first step. The second step would be to work with the federal government to ensure that there is some set aside or small percentage of military construction to address affordable housing here on Guam. And then the last part of that approach would be to get with our military partners to support our request to address the military housing allowance. And so by addressing this issue and push for a market-based adjustment to military stipends for housing, we can ensure that local families can afford housing here on Guam. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very
Anita?
much, Ricky. Very good point about the affordable housing issue. Much was said about ensuring that we have the right professional talent for the sustainability of the military bases post buildup. Much has been said about the need for qualified professional expertise, whether it be in engineering, cyber, environmental, and so forth. And so in thinking about the need to keep the local talent on island, by local I mean just civilians in general, the issue of unaffordability to live on Guam and the emigration of a certain percentage of the middle class that has left Guam because of the lack of housing affordability issue. As we continue at the University of Guam to produce the necessary talent to feed into these respective industries, including supporting defense, we have to think about the other part of the equation in that how do we ensure that we keep the talent here? It just pains me to produce those that are going to be entering registered nurses, those who are entering engineers, and they say, well, gosh, I can't afford to move out of my parents' home, so I'm going to leave island. And so we've got that issue to address, and I really appreciate the three-pronged policy model that Ricky has just shared, and I'm hoping that much traction can be made because time is not our friend at this moment.
Definitely.
Time is not our friend at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any thoughts on this there from your perspective?
Ricky really covered some of the priority policy points that we are working on. And I do want to mention that one of the policies that are available to Guam is that, the Secretary of Defense could convene the Economic Adjustment Committee. I do have to give credit to the former Congresswoman because at the time of the Marine realignment, she did have a congressional bill passed that convened the Economic Adjustment Committee. It was not to consider or think about convening. It was, you will convene. And it wasn't an order to the Department of Defense. It really was hitting 22 federal agencies. Because, and why that is important and very critical is, again, the DOD, through whatever, and their priorities and their mission, lack a lot of statutory authority that the other 21 federal agencies have direct statutory authority to support communities like Guam, like HHS, the new hospital, policies that, again, are critical to the community and any community. So it's looking at those policies that are vehicles for communities like Guam to work with not just the DOD, but bringing all of the federal agencies together. And then when looking for policy, what do our local policies complement the policies that we are asking the federal government to, right? So there has to be that alignment. We don't want to promote a federal policy that our local policy conflicts with. So, Ricky and I work a lot on a lot of the policy issues that we face with growth. So That would be my.
Well, there's a lot of challenges coming up for our community, and so as we move forward in this forward posture that we're talking about, and today we're going to go through a lot of those, from infrastructure to new opportunities, and like additive manufacturing and things like that. And I think there's some opportunities for all of us to find nuggets of where we can develop policies locally that are going to help move those forward and are going to help develop an ecosystem for each one of them, find the opportunities and discuss the opportunities for hardening our infrastructure, for looking for all of those things, fixing our port authority. And so in part way, I would think that policy is also paving the road forward to allow those things to happen, and then making adjustments to make sure that it's working for our local community. Would you agree, Mr. Speaker?
I agree totally. And first off, with regard to the Economic Adjustment Committee, Governor, I want to thank you in recognizing that there is that ability to be able to stand up as a result of the authorization through the NDAA. And it's in those discussions of the policy, Governor. I was just thanking you for the EAC while you were talking to your chief of staff. First off, let me comment, just so everybody knows, when you're sitting up here with all these lights, no wonder why they can't see you in the back, because I can't see anybody in the back right now. But it's in those discussions about the policies and wanting to change and getting those needs. And then identifying where we may have conflicting policies, if you will, which is the role that we have on this side of the forum, of being able to help to create and break down those barriers and create those opportunities. And it's in those discussions, again, where he says, okay, well, what is this for and why? We have to answer to that. We have to, in order to be able to create that. It's not to say that we want to be an impediment to it. And sometimes it appears like we are. It's just a matter that we've got to be able to make sure that the policy that is necessary will fit the policy that we're trying to align to. And that's where the challenge is at sometimes.
Yes.
And so that's why I appreciate the conversation. Along those lines, I want to be able to bring up, I said, I'm sure it was an arduous task to be able to put this forum together because, a lot of it, again, it goes back towards the execution of the policy. Mm-hmm. It's the execution of the buildup. I suggest and I challenge that you create a forum to bring in the community who want to know what the policy is and how they can be a part of that creation of the policy. That would be even a more difficult task because then how do you separate out all those voices?
Yes.
Okay? And that's the job that we have. And sometimes it can be contentious.
Well, I think to be fair, I think that's the challenge of leadership when you're representing constituencies, no matter what party you're from or whatever. You're representing a community. And so part and parcel to, winning without fighting, to bring that right, I love that phrase, winning without fighting. Part and parcel of that is showing adversaries or actors out there that we have policymakers who are working together. Despite the fact that they're elected every 2 years or elected every 4 years, we have a solid ground of basic policy that makes us stronger against adversarial positions that are out there. Senator, you look like you're holding that to your heart. You want to say something.
Thank you very much, Cliff. This 38th Guam legislature has basically thought out of the box and in regards to policy and passes of bills. Just recently, a couple months ago, we allowed, of course, the Port Authority of Guam to partner up, of course, with Black Construction, a dollar-for-dollar offset. And Black Construction had been awarded, of course, the contract to rebuild the glass breakwater.
Yeah.
Okay? And so that's going to be a long project, I think a 5-year project or something to that extent, yeah. And so what that partnership was is, again, that they needed a staging area for all the equipment and things that have to go underwater for that glass breakwater. So the development of that area, not just paving the road, but buildings that will be erected for their use while they're staging, those will stay in place. And again, as the Port Master Plan has put together of course, their vision of what the port's going to look like in years to come, you know, as Attorney Moots had said, we're very limited in our resources. So in partnering again with folks like the Black Construction in regards to a dollar for dollar offset, once they leave the port after the job is done, those buildings will stay in place and would have cost the Port Authority nothing. So I want to thank the Port Authority, again, the management and board for that vision. And then not only that, but recently in the same actually, in the same session, we had first ever, basically, a 50-year lease allowed for the airport authority,
Yes.
which was impediment for companies wanting to come out to Guam, again, to lease properties, and with the impediment of maybe just a 3 or 4 year, lease agreement.
It's difficult, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, how can we be a little more have autonomy again, you know, for our self-reliance, basically? These are the things that the 38th Guam legislature had tackled in this particular, and thank you again to the leadership of Speaker Bloss in very instrumental in work and work in this legislature to be able to do things like this.
Yes, and thank you so much for those movements, because those are forward movements again. It kind of brings us, and it strengthens our economy, it creates jobs, it's good. And that's great as part of our force protection, right? So I commend you for that. One quick comment from you, Senator Barnes.
I was just going to share, as we look in the past of the successes that's happened, one that was brought up this morning was the success of the wastewater system when the federal government said, what do you need? And the government of Guam said, hey, we need the infrastructure to be hardened, we need our wastewater system to be upgraded, and we need the resources to help.
Yes.
To make this happen. So it'd be good for our military partners, but also great for our community.
It's a
and
dual
infrastructure
use,
the dual
approach.
alignment of working together is real.
And that's really what we're looking for, because it's so important for our policies.
That's right.
To reflect that we are together, united, and stronger. Any last comments before we go to 1 or 2 quick questions? Go ahead, Dr. Enriquez. Or go ahead.
Unless you want to save it for your next question.
No, I'm okay. Actually, we are running out of time. I do want to get a couple of comments in, so please.
When I was part of the U.S. Scholar delegation to Taiwan back in 2013, what I found to be very interesting, of course, enlightening, as president of the University of Guam, is how at these respective ministries that they had representatives within their think tank, and there was always representatives from their universities contributing. Sure. And so when you think about policy development based on, you know, the genesis usually is a societal issue or evidence-based research that feeds into policy development consideration that ultimately could become statute. And so I just want to advertise that we have multiple research centers of excellence that address environmental issues, water quality, the Micronesian Area for Research Center, the Pacific Center for Island Security, the Cancer Research Center, the Water and Environmental Research Institute of the Western Pacific, the University of Guam's Marine Biology, among many others. So many subject matter experts that are available. And I appreciate the governor pulling in these experts to participate in like the Guam Green Growth Initiative, as well as the helping to soliciting feedback for the development of the 2050 Sustainability Plan, which is an update of the Guam Comprehensive Development Plan. As chairperson of the Guam Land Use Commission, I appreciate the engagement of our subject matter experts. And I'll just end with this. The University of Guam is both a land grant and sea grant institution. And as such, that we are available through our multiple programs, as well as extension and research, to serve as a resource behind the fence,
Yes.
right outside of the fence as well.
Well,
Thank you.
and you have. There's much evidence out there of the University of Guam, as a major resource to policymakers. And that's what we're looking for, bridges and ways that we can intersect. Any final words from your perspective, Ricky, that you want to share?
Yes, thanks, Cliff. So in going back to your question in how local policymakers can ensure that we're here to maximize the buildup, right, and what it brings. And you talked about additive manufacturing. And so
Yes.
there are opportunities for, tax abatements or tax incentives to stand up that industry. But we have to keep at the forefront that these incentives should be prioritized for our local entrepreneurs. So we should encourage our local community entrepreneurs to take advantage and actually be prioritized in those opportunities. Like Senator Barnes was mentioning, we need to think long term, and we need to think about standing up our workforce in the long run. And so this is where we can make that case.
Yeah. And conversely also, is we need to think about what obstacles are in the way for us to do certain things that we have now, that we have in our grasp now. So it's kind of all of that. Vera, I'd love to hear your final words.
Well, I think that in the development or in
Yes.
the review of policy or lack thereof, that there are vehicles in place
Yes.
in the interim
Yes.
that we currently have with Department of Defense, like IGSA's, intergovernmental service agreements that I think GPA has and GWA has. And I think there's that opportunity in that vehicle to look at things that we can execute right away. Obviously, we'd have to have our lawyers look at it and make sure that we can engage. But those are things that we're looking at more and more to utilize between our agencies or our community and the Department of Defense. But then I think on top of that is and I believe that it's being addressed, but procurement policy, right? And what are the changes that need to be made to give our businesses more opportunity, or our agencies the flexibility to execute the things that they need to execute right away. And so looking at, other transactional authorities as a procurement vehicle, or, standing up a maybe Office of Strategic Capital. What does that look like for the government of Guam? The DoD has a really good Office of Strategic Capital. So, really taking a look at all avenues that are available to us in the interim while we make adjustments or adopt new policy, given some of the urgent needs that we have today. So.
Well, good. And I think we all agree that we're all in this together, and we can tear down obstacles and build new roads. So I'll thank you all for there. But before we go, are there any burning questions or comments that anybody would like to see?
Half a day, everyone. Hey, Cliff.
Oh.
You can't see me, but
Okay.
I'm Joe Roberto, immediate past chair for the Guam Contractors
There you are.
Association. Just a couple comments on the H-2B. I would recommend that Greg Massey have a say on that, because I believe contractors are already allowed to bring in H-2B workers on outside of the fence projects. Because there is, Department of Labor has that form that the contractor just has to fill out that allows them to work outside, so to speak. But a couple things, and I know we can get together later on these, but housing affordability. One of the issues that policies have right now in existence that hinders more outside work to come in are existing laws that need to be changed, and it can have sunset clauses, whereas extreme measures require somewhat extreme decisions that have to be made. For example, M1 properties. H-2Bs are not allowed on certain homes and up to 50%. That one law alone, if we can change that or amend that, could probably help a lot of people. If I, as an example, if I have a home, 4-bedroom or a duplex, not on M1, that can have a local contractor or a federal contractor house a couple H-2Bs, guess what I'm gonna ask them to do on the weekend? I've always wanted that back kitchen, so I'm gonna ask them to hook me up, right? So, and at the same time, maybe our neighbors and friends could learn from their expertise, because that's one of the things we're lacking is the skilled workforce. At the same time, and also there's our president for the GCA is here, our chairman is here, and I'm sure we could get together later. And that's just one of the things. The policy in itself, a lot of laws that do need to amend, instead of create new laws, why don't we look at the laws that are in existence already and amend those laws? Because those old laws hinder what we are trying to achieve today. That's what needs to happen. Also, relative to the affordability, when these shipping companies increase rates, guess what happens to the contractors? We have no choice but to increase those same rates by whatever percentage they pass on. So shipping, there's another law in our books that affect those rates. There's a lot of things that we can go through that we really need to sit down, not necessarily in such a large forum, and just attack those one by one. And you will find, I believe, we can efficiently accomplish the mission at hand. And that's really ultimately to protect our island. And when we protect our island, we protect our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Zeus Masi. You know, the NGOs out there, the Contractors Association, there's so many, there's the Chamber of Commerce, there's a lot of SMEs out there as well, because you deal with it every day. So I think that's one of the connections, intersections we can also take a hard look at. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to our panel here. And as we move forward, there's going to be opportunities for more dialogue and even beyond this forum. Thank you very much.